This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Detroit is the greatest!
Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Darren McCarty comes back to Neiman in front of him. McCarty draws. McCarty in. McCarty scores! He makes them a goal! Darren McCarty!
Welcome to another episode of the Motor City Sports Rant. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. The King gave me some Hollywood action. Decides, hey, I'm a big baller. I don't want to do any more work. I'm not coming to the studio. So Jason's lounging around on this nice, beautiful Monday. What's going on, Jason? Whereabouts are you?
Hey, welcome to the big baller zone.
You don't have to come to the studio, but what are you up to? Are you enjoying the weather? Are you giving me the old line where you call in and then you're actually about to hit the beach and have some cocktails after we record this podcast?
I wish I could say that I'm that cool, but no, actually, we're going a little bit behind the scenes, but we were supposed to record a little bit later tonight, but I forgot that I had another prior engagement planned, so got to do that. And the doc, he's big time too. He's busy, so got to fit in somewhere. So he calls me up and says, "Hey, can you just call me?" And that's what I'm doing now. And this might actually be the debut of my 3-month-old son, Jacob, on this podcast because he's sitting here with me.
Dude, that's awesome. But unlike the Lions, I will not recoup any of the money or funds that I've given to you because of the fact that you're not fulfilling your real obligations. I'm not like the Detroit Lions. I'll allow you to sit at home and bond with your son. It's all good. How is the little fella doing?
He's doing good, right? He just ate. And now he's sitting in his little bouncy chair staring at a little smiley face guy. And for the moment, he's happy as pie. And he's happy as pie. I'm happy.
I really enjoyed your appearance at the baseball game. You had texted me and you told me, you're like, look, there's an opportunity for me to maybe be on the Tigers game because of where I'm sitting. So I happened to turn on the television and there you were. But I did see something that might have looked a little unusual in that at first, did you sit at the far seat number 1 in somebody else's spot? Because then you moved over 2 spots next to your brother to his right. And I'm like, wait a minute, about the third inning, it didn't look like you were sitting in the same seat as you were when I first saw you.
So the way it worked, first off, I had no idea where these seats are going to be. And there was actually a point in time where I actually thought about not going to the game because I didn't want to leave my wife hanging for an entire night with the kid. So I talked it over with her. She's like, yeah, definitely go. So I go with 4 other guys, including my brother. He said, what was it? The on-deck circle, which I was like, okay, I mean, on-deck circle, they're pretty decent seats, but I never expected them to be where they were. And we just kept walking down the stairs, and then we finally see the seats. And me and my brother were the last to get there, and they had already moved in. So we just happened to get those end seats first. So like the first couple innings, me and my brother sat there. We were generous. We rotated seats. We had one of the guy who actually got the seat. He sat over in the aisle because it was a breast cancer awareness night, and he had a sign for one of his wife's sister. So we kind of rotated, and it all worked out. We all got our time in the limelight.
Dude, that was awesome. It was fun to interact with you a little bit. We got some great photos because at the time when I started texting you, the Tigers were actually losing the ball game. And I don't think it was the last series versus the Rangers. It was the series prior, right? Who was the matchup?
Yep, it was the Orioles.
Yep, it was the Orioles.
It was Fulmer versus Ubaldo Jimenez.
Yeah, and so at the time when I started texting you, I was like, okay, they're losing. We got to have some fun here. So we got a great couple shots if you go to our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, where I said, look, it's rally time. So the first thing I thought of was like, you know what? Let's just start doing some hand gestures. And I never thought it would work out so perfectly where when you would notice it, because there's opportunities for when I message you where the camera is not actually looking at you, where they're panning, behind the pitcher's shoulder, or they're not looking directly at you. But it worked out perfectly. Both times that I text you, you got your gesture up in a spot where the television camera was looking right at you, so I could capture it. It was hilarious. It was fun. So if you look at our Twitter page or you follow Jason at Jarvie the King, you'll see that you'll have a picture of Jason with his fist up, fight the power, and then he's doing the Jersey Shore rally. So I thought it was funny. You were a good sport about it, and it seemed like you were having a good old time. And even a fan of ours noticed, like, dude, what kind of massive food were you eating? Because it looked like you were carrying like a 15-foot sub.
Yeah, that was so I started off the day, I had a bag of peanuts, but yeah, the picture referenced to that, the cousin of mine, she tweeted out, said it looked like a giant burrito, but no, I was holding, they felt like these like gigantic tubes of popcorn, and so I was holding it for my brother.
Nice. So it was all in all a great experience. It looked like you hung until the end of the game, and Michael Fulmer did some things. The offense helped out, and unfortunately for the Tigers, the series, what we've been watching has been up and down baseball. Win, lose, win, lose, win, lose. And the game you went to was a win. But we'll talk about the Tigers a little bit later and things like that. But it was a fun experience to see you there. You got some good camera time. You were rocking a beard similar to Michael Fulmer. My goodness. You still looking like Michael Fulmer? You still looking like Axeman over there?
I am still looking like Action Bronson, Michael Fulmer. I've been thinking about trimming it a little bit. It's getting a little warmer out, so you'll probably see me a little bit more trim. I'm not going to shave it all off, but I will probably be a little bit more clean-shaven come June.
Okay, so this might be a little bit of an abbreviated podcast. We're lucky to have Jason whenever there's an opportunity, and even if he's calling in, it's still going to be a fun chat. But everybody is a buzz, Jason. I know that you've heard the buzz. I mean, Calvin Johnson was in town. He was doing a camp, and the Free Press caught up with him. Dave Burkett, fine Detroit Lions beat reporter, kind of asked him a little bit about the camp and things like that, his relationship with the Lions and potential jersey retirement. And everybody was shocked at the news that kind of came out, in that he was asked, it wasn't like he just shot it out there, but he was kind of asked about stuff with the Lions and things like that. And he came out and in essence said, look, I'm not exactly happy with how things ended with the Detroit Lions. And so people put two and two together and they realized, well, what was going on? Was it the fact that he retired? Was it the fact that he didn't feel the love? No, most people were pointing to the fact that because of the fact that he retired, the Detroit Lions asked for about maybe $320,000 of the signing bonus back. So they took a chunk of change out of the man's wallet, out of his family's pocketbook, and so obviously he's a little bit upset. But many people are looking at it and going, wow, Calvin never really spoke up before, and people are debating who's at fault. Should the Lions have even asked for the money? Should there have been a negotiation? Do you treat a guy like that way? It'll be interesting to get your take about it, because it was a little bit surprising, because Calvin, throughout the course of his career, has just been politically correct and always really said the right things.
Yeah, when I heard those comments, it was very surprising, because back when he retired, I was a very big supporter of his, that, he didn't have to answer to anybody. I mean, he clearly was starting to break down. He could have, there's no doubt he would have played a role on this team last year, but I'm of the mindset that it did help Matthew Stafford develop a little bit. And unless he was going to accept like a reduced role on this team, I don't think it wouldn't have helped this team. But back to his comments on the whole, how it didn't end right with the Lions. It leaves a sour taste in my mouth, because this is a guy who, for all intents and purposes, he did it the right way. And he really didn't have to answer to anybody. And it feels like a slap in the face to the fans to just come out and say, oh, I don't really want to talk about the Lions just because of the way it ends, and to not give any detail of as to what's happened. If he's been done wrong to the Lions, it certainly wouldn't have been the first time that they've done something like this to a player. But I want to know. I honestly, if we never find out what it really is, then it taints my memory of Calvin Johnson. That this is just a guy now who he doesn't care about the Lions anymore. And if it is all because of $320,000, the man made millions and millions of dollars. He was the highest paid wide receiver of his time. So it's like, I don't know, it seems really petty.
No, Jason, I sit here truly conflicted as well because Darren Ravel tweeted out that on average, with the collective bargaining and the TV deals and stuff like that, an average NFL franchise makes around $600K per day in money. So you're saying that a guy that gave you 10 years, you can't just say, you know what, we'll eat the cost. And when you look at some reports in terms of how other NFL squads handle this kind of stuff, it is kind of a mixed bag. Some organizations will ask. Others, like the Patriots, they sign receivers, they get $400K signing bonus. They end up staying 10, 15 days, and they don't even ask for the money. So for New England not to do it that often makes it kind of look like, well, what are the Lions really trying to accomplish? But if you want to look at the other side and you want to present it, it's a salary cap era. It's a situation where the Lions are a business, and the Lions have a finite amount they can spend. And when you look at player contracts, you give a signing bonus, and we can talk about whether that's guaranteed money for the NFL athlete or whether, because of the fact that it is prorated over the life of the contract. The Lions went after Barry Sanders when he abruptly retired from the Lions. So it's not unprecedented that the Lions would go do it. And if you look at it from the side of the Lions, they are trying to recoup some money that would allow them also to apply it to other players or to other staff members. And so $300,000, while in the grand scheme of things compared to what Calvin made, tens of millions, is a lot of money to just say, okay, fine, eat it. It's hard for business people to do that. And many people are pointing to the fact it was Bob Quinn's first year. It was Rod Wood's first year. It was their first go around with this kind of thing. Maybe in years, as they progress, they might not have made the same decision. But I can't fault them for at least asking Calvin Johnson, look, they didn't ask for the entire amount. He got, I think, $3.2 million to sign, and they only got 10% of it back. I do believe that it was a fair number to ask back. And in terms of if you look at it from the Lions side, Calvin Johnson retiring potentially cost them millions of dollars because let's just say, for example, he does stay an additional 1 year or 2 years. Now you make the postseason and you have a couple more games in Ford Field. That's a bunch of money that was lost. So from the Lions standpoint, I know we're not probably going to have the privilege of talking to somebody from the Lions, but if we could talk to them, they would say, look, we recouped a little bit of money that was actually lost because if Calvin's on the team and producing, we could have like 2 to 3 home games maybe in the postseason where we can get, $1 million plus with the food and with the ticket sales and with the exposure. So Calvin retiring cost them money. So I can also relate to what the Lions did, but I think in this situation, the best thing would have been to just walk away and stay quiet, not reveal this because you see it, Jason. It's making national news. You got Undisputed talking about it, ESPN. We're talking about it. Every single show is talking about, damn, Calvin, now you're going to start talking?
And, I mean, you can look at it from the team's point of view. You can look at it from the player's point of view. But I think what we tend to deal with the fans' point of view. And, I mean, I know for me, it leaves a sour taste in my mouth. I mean, how do you feel? I mean, I want to say that you were definitely tainted by Calvin leaving. And, I mean, does this change at all, or does it make you, I don't know, dislike him a little bit more?
No, I'm of the opinion that, look, you never really were part of anything substantial on the field. I know you're widely regarded as a Hall of Famer, but in terms of winning, I still don't understand the love and revere for Calvin Johnson in terms of the winning side. People love the man. He never really got anything done on the field other than stats. I mean, great, that's nice. You're able to catch the football. You're able to break away in your early career, but you were still on the roster when the team went 0-16. And I look at it like, look, you can have sour grapes towards the Lions. You can be angry, but to air it in that way, like you said, it does make me feel a little bit like, it's a little bit sour grapes. And I'm more along the line of supporting the Lions in this one because you know what? It's a business. They paid you a ton of money. You didn't really go away in the best light because, of the injuries and things like that. You sacrificed, but I just feel like a situation like this, you could have kept quiet and not let it get to this, because now it puts the organization in a tough spot because they're going to have to answer the questions, and now other players are going to be like, damn, that's how you treat your players? This should have been done internally, and if you weren't happy at the time a year ago, then just come out and talk about it then. Say, look, make it a public issue at the time when it's happening. When it's a year later and you've already cut the check and it's already done, the Lions are moving forward, it's just bad timing to come out and talk about it right now.
Yeah, and for me, it's going to affect my memory of Calvin Johnson as a player. And if this would have never came out and, he would have just lived his life, I mean, Barry, he's definitely had his stuff to say about the Lions, but he also, he at least won a playoff game and went to a couple more. Calvin, he clearly looked like he wasn't the same old Calvin in the last season and possibly even his last two seasons. So our last memories of Calvin Johnson, aside from his last game where they were clearly trying to feed him the ball, similar to like a Kobe Bryant going out and looks like a 50-point game, Calvin wasn't at his best. And now with this, it sucks. Because, I would have blindly followed him and would have said that the guy deserves to be a Hall of Famer. And that would have been based solely off of probably his one record-breaking season. But now with all of this, he's got some stats, but he's not like the all-time receiving leader. He's not the all-time touchdown leader. I want to say he's below the top 50 in all of those in career yards and touchdowns. So, does the guy really deserve to be a Hall of Fame? The talent was there, but, if he would have won a playoff game or done anything like that, or just at least contributed, there would have been no question. But the fact that he wasn't a factor in any of our playoff losses that he was in, it doesn't make it look good for him.
And the biggest complaint, Jason, that everybody has that talks about it around the water cooler is in the biggest of the big games, in the games where he had to show up and help overcome the challenges that the Lions had. Recall a game where he had like 3 touchdowns and 300 yards, similar to a Larry Fitzgerald. That's the guy I always go back to and say, look, there were game after game. Of course, Calvin Johnson had good games in some situations, but overall, in the biggest of moments, I can recall Larry Fitzgerald carrying the Cardinals to a couple of playoff wins in a couple of their runs with the stuff that he was doing in later in life in his career. So it's just in terms of Calvin, I respect the fact that he had talent. He was obviously a top receiver, but I always grade these athletes not on their stats in the regular season, not on touchdowns, stuff like that, but in the biggest moments when it's time to advance. What do you do in the playoffs? What do you do when the brightest of the bright lights are on? And it wasn't enough. And so, yeah, you could say it's a team game. Yeah, you could say, look, there were other factors in terms of collectively, it's a team with the Lions always struggle with the line and a no running game and stuff like that. But did Calvin Johnson ever really take over a game and made it all about him? Not too many times that we can talk about. And this is a bad taste because in retirement, you don't want to make news like this. And but it does shed light, though, Jason. And something that I think the NFL and their athletes have to talk about is their union is so horrible that this is even allowed league-wide. When you look at the numbers, the NFL is a cash cow. $600K plus per day they make with TV deals and revenues and stuff like that for even the bad teams. So for the league and their union to even allow this, to allow teams to even ask for a signing bonus, because it's kind of like, if you look at it, a double-edged sword. In the totality and the letter of the law, your signing bonus is you signing your name to a contract and getting that money. Guaranteed. That's yours. So for the league to allow teams to ask for some of it back because of the salary cap, and what teams do is, let's say you make $3 million in a signing bonus over a 3-year contract, it counts against your cap $1 million per year over the course of 3 years, or however you structure the signing bonus, and that's what allows these teams to ask for it back. But the union is so bad. And when you look at it comparative to the other leagues, where, NFL athletes can get cut at any moment. You can get your signing bonus retracted. You can have so many issues. It just seems like this is one thing they should just stop and say, look, if the guy signs his name, this is what it is. He's signing his name for a check. And when he signs it, he could play 1 minute or 1 year. It doesn't matter. The union should fight for the athletes to get all the money up front. No questions asked.
But I would say the owners hold all the power. I mean, they have
do.
all the money.
They do.
So you look at the MLB and the NHL and the NBA. I mean, the NBA, they're all getting paid there anyways because there's only, 12 guys on a team. So the 12th man is getting, millions of dollars. But yeah, I mean, a team like baseball where everything's pretty much guaranteed once you sign it, it's tough. And you look at the salary breakdown of NFL teams, and it really is. It's, a couple guys are getting like 80 to 90% of that team's salary cap, and the rest of it is divvied out between rookies and, fill-in guys. Unless there's going to be real change, I mean, we're not going to see anything different in the near future. I mean, the players would have to really be willing to sit out years if they really want to enact some kind of change like this, because there's so much money coming in for the NFL, and I don't see any time soon the owners giving up, I don't know, millions and millions and possibly billions more dollars to the players.
Yeah, I was looking online here. It says here, even the notoriously money-conscious New England Patriots aren't ruthless. They gave Reggie Wayne $450,000 to sign in 2015, but they parted ways after 11 days. So Reggie Wayne got to go to the camp for 11 whole days and made $450,000, and the Patriots did not even ask for the money back. So it does kind of...
Yeah, that's the Patriots. The Patriots, they can afford to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the Lions, in essence, the Lions are a little bit frugal, and it does make them look a little bit tight. But at the same time, I'm interested to see if they do ever address something like this, because it seems like they just got to keep it hush-hush. But the other question that it leads to is there's still a ceremony that Calvin Johnson's going to be invited to. Do you think this will be all wrapped up by next season or the year after if the Lions decide to invite Calvin Johnson? Because the way it's kind of been portrayed, they may have a Calvin Johnson jersey retirement without Calvin Johnson.
They're definitely going to resolve something. I think in this day and age, with social media and with how this story is blown up, I think something has to be done. I'm sure Bob Quinn or somebody up in the fours will reach out to Calvin and try and smooth this thing over, because back when Barry retired, it was you're waiting to hear from faxes and newspapers for all that information. So I think information moves way too quick nowadays. This will probably be resolved, and I know that the whole Lions organization, they don't want to mess this up again, because they already messed it up with one Hall of Fame player, and you have a Hall of Fame potential player that could be an asset for your team, but very quickly he could turn into a calling card for all players to look the other way when they're looking at the Lions.
Yeah, bad situation all around. Sit tight, Jason. We'll be back after this quick timeout. We'll talk about our host site, Podomatic, and then we'll finish out this abbreviated podcast talking about the Tigers. Jason Jarvie got to see them up close and personal. I want to get his impressions just after this quick timeout. Doc here for Podomatic.com. When Adam and I first started this project, we looked to a site to put up our audio, and we said, look, we want a host site that allows us to take our audio and put it up to the internet so our supporters can hear it. Because when you start a project, one of the first things you're trying to do is build an audience. And there's nothing worse than when you put up your audio and you get a link and you can't find it or you can't listen to it. And our host site, Podomatic, has been so supportive and so easy. One of the reasons why we've stuck with them exclusively since 2013 is the fact they're so easy to use. All our links have been successful. Everybody that wants to find the Detroit Sports Podcast can find it, so that when guys like Adam, Vito, Jason want to go out and cover an event, people look to our site and say, wow, this is a legit site. They push the play button on our website, and the audio is crisp, clear, and ready to go. And so using Podomatic has allowed us to do this project seamlessly and flawlessly. If you're going to start a brand new podcast and you want to go out there and have your voice heard or talk about sports or politics or whatever interests you, Doc would recommend one host site, Podomatic.com. All right, Jason, your thoughts on the Detroit Tigers from your vantage point. You got to see some good things. You got to see the offense. You got to see Michael Fulmer. But the other side of things is the challenge in that most of the other pitchers in the starting rotation haven't been that good. And you look at it and you go, my goodness, when a guy like Victor Martinez leaves the offense, it kind of struggles a little bit in terms of being offensively consistent. But as we sit here recording, similar to previous episodes, it's a 500 ball club, 21 wins up, 21 losses down.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I really saw, and it pissed me off to no end, is Justin Upton seems to just be chasing balls on 2-strike counts, and it killed me. The games that I watched, he was down in the count, and he just chased on balls and struck out both times. And that was the one negative point that I could focus on in that game. That this is a guy we're paying a ton of money on. He got hot late last year, and I think with we're not sure how long Victor Martinez is going to last. Miguel Cabrera has been in and out of the lineup a little bit. He's getting up there. It's getting a little tight. So we need a guy like Justin Upton to come in and produce and not strike out horribly. So on the offensive side of the ball, it's, Upton has to produce. You pretty much know what you're going to get from everybody else. I mean, Alex Avila has been on fire, and he's been moved up in the lineup, rightfully so. But I don't know how long that's going to last. I mean, it would be great if he goes the entire season like this, but I just don't see Alex Avila being the hot hitter that he is the entire season. So we're going to need some more consistent hitting from the bats that we do have. On the pitching side, the beginning of the season, we all thought the bullpen was the issue, and our starting pitching was sound. But it really is starting to look like if we can get through to the sixth or seventh inning, our bullpen might actually be able to hold. With the Wilsons, Blaine Hardy, Shane Green, and I mean even Francisco Rodriguez he's been working in a little bit in situations that aren't, dire, that we absolutely need to compete. So JV hasn't been necessarily the JV that we've seen in the past couple seasons. I mean, he's looking a little bit better. Fulmer is definitely the ace of the staff, but I think right now with Daniel Norris, Matt Boyd, and Jordan Zimmerman, you're just hoping you can take a lead going into the 7th or 8th inning and hoping that Justin Wilson can shut it down.
What was your impressions of Michael Fulmer, seeing him live and up close? Dude has filthy stuff and can get on a roll when his stuff is working. He seems to be a guy that's trying to take the challenge of really putting this team under his wing and making it his own. He's a good, talented kid, and really, it's unbelievable the talent that he brings to the table.
The dude is nuts. I mean, I see him. I think he's right where Max Scherzer was right before he blew up, and I think if we can keep Fulmer around for a long period of time, we're going to have a really good pitcher. There was the one season where, Scherzer was still number 2 behind JV, and he just absolutely blew up. And I think next season, it's going to be a really big decision on who's going to be your number 1 guy. Is it JV or is it Michael Fulmer? And unless JV has some miraculous turnaround and then can come back and continue it in the beginning of the season, I think next season you're going to look at Michael Fulmer being the ace of the staff.
Jason, what was your reaction to an article that I seen online that kind of talked about where Justin Verlander and some of the other members of the squad are talking that they're aware that if they're around 500 around the trade deadline, that this team could be broken up because of the fact that there is pressure and the fact that the players are aware Do you think it's really concerning that there is this pressure for the Tigers to perform at this point in time in the season?
I honestly think professional baseball players, professional sports players in general, they really look at it a game at a time, unless they're really into the crunch time of the playoff race. They look at it a game at a time, and when you play 162 games, it's tough to look that far ahead.
Yeah, no, it's tough because, game in, game out, they have to perform. They realize that there is a bit of pressure to perform, and it's a 500 team. That's the tough part for me to resolve. And when you watch the squad is, you know what? There are going to be nights where they can hit the cover off the baseball, and there's going to be other nights where it doesn't all come together. And then you see what happens is with a team that is 500 is they can't collectively put everything together all at once for long stretches of time, meaning you're going to have stretches of games where the starters are going to do well, but then the defense might not show up, or the offense or bullpen may slip. Or then when the offense is around, then the starters don't go as well as they should, similar to what Boyd and Norris have done in their last couple outings. So I'm concerned a little bit about the starting rotation because many people felt like it was a strength. And you look at it across the board where Zimmerman, highly paid, not getting it done. Norris and Boyd, their last couple starts, they've been knocked around a little bit. Their pitch count has been elevated, and you look at JV and Fulmer, they're carrying the load up until this point, but that's only 2/5 of your rotation. You need the other three to really come out and do some things, and I'm really nervous as we're recording this because what are you going to go up against now these next 4 games? Probably an angry Houston team that just got swept by Cleveland. You're going on the road to play 4 games on the road in a tough environment versus the Houston Astros, a team with a great record up until this point. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh boy, it's going to be tough even to get a split.
And I think that's really all you can hope for at this point is to go on the road and split against good teams. Just because that's what this Tigers team is. We've said it all along. They're a roller coaster team. They're going to win some, they're going to lose some, and that's right where they are. They're 21-21 through 42 games. So the key to success for this team is split against the teams that you probably are going to struggle against and make sure that you win those series against the horrible teams in the Major League Baseball.
Yeah, so versus Houston, how many wins do you think they're going to get?
How many games do they play?
4.
They play 4. I'll say they win 2.
Okay.
I think they're definitely good enough. I think JD Martinez has been on a great pace. I think they can at least go out and win 2. I don't know. I mean, I'd say it's either 2 or 1.
Yeah, check out Vito's piece. He did a preview on the series with the pitching matchups, the success that Houston's had, in the past as well. But a pitcher that's done pretty well versus Houston is Justin Verlander. I believe he's going to go and take the mound on Thursday. So check out our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. You can check out Vito's preview as well as, the Tigers Talk podcast that airs each and every Wednesday on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Great podcast, sir. Thanks for making the time. I appreciate it. It was fun. Definitely catching up with you a little bit. And the Motor City Sports Rant will take a little hiatus, a couple weeks, because next week's the holiday. I can hear young Jacob back there doing his thing. So it's a good time to wrap up this podcast. We'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Jason will be refreshed, and he'll tell us his tales watching his fine son grow up. Are you handling everything okay over there?
Oh, yeah. Everything's going good. I think he's going through a phase where he's reverting his sleep habits, but we'll power through it.
Great to check in with you as always. I always enjoy your insights, however we may talk, whether it be in studio or whether it be over the phone. It was a good chat, sir. We'll talk soon.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, nice, idiot. You. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right, Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.